Coming up next, my next guest says it's a calling, not a career. You're going to meet John Loyd, the wealth planner, next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I'm a storyteller, and I've always thought that I have a calling instead of a career. I did it for 25 years, as you just saw in TV news, and now I'm telling it through my own company. I met a kindred spirit just now, John Loyd. He's the wealth planner, and he also has a calling instead of a career. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Good to see you again.
Thank you. In fact, John says he got my book from some 20 plus years ago. Which is
I don't know if it's that long ago, but it was a while back. Yeah, still have it for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great book.
So thank you. So John, take us back to the beginning. Have you always been interested in finances?
Yeah, so I've actually been doing this for over 2 decades, and so I'm thinking about making it a career, Jeff. But it really kind of started a long time ago. So I was probably, my parents were blue-collar workers. I was the first generation college student, and my parents would watch the news every single night, and there would, a reporter on there would say, the Dow was up or the Dow was down. I would hear that over and over again. And I finally asked my dad, who I thought my dad was all-knowing, and he could truly fix literally anything out there. And I asked my dad, what does that mean? And I remember he tried to formulate an answer, but I could tell, all right, he was really just kind of winging it somewhat. And so I just really kind of took it upon my own and just went to the library, and I just started doing some research on, what is the Dow Jones? What does that mean? What is the S&P 500? And it just kind of branched off from there. And I just started studying more, sort of finance topics. And in fact, I think it was for my 13th birthday, I asked my parents for, I'm not joking, I asked for a money management newsletter. That's what I wanted for my birthday. I'm trying to think what teenage boys like now, but I literally asked for a money management newsletter. And this is back in the day before the days of the internet. I couldn't just find that, on just easy at my fingertips. And so this is where they literally, had to put a stamp on something and mail it to me. And I think I got that quarterly. And then I just kind of sort of kept going from there. And then I started a little lawn care service when I was in high school and college, and that really kind of got my sort of business juices flowing, if you will. And so I really thought I would major in business, and was kind of leaning towards finance just because sort of the background there. And I remember one day I was at a bank in Temple, Texas, where I was making deposits at, and I walked into the bank and they had a rate board, and so it was, some banks will still have that to this day. And it'll maybe say, 1 year CD at 2% and 3 year CDs at 3% or whatever like that, and checking account, savings account, money market account, and all these different rates and so forth there. And so I had the savings account, I guess, and it was paying, let's say 2%. And then there was a money market account that was paying 3%. And so I asked the teller, and again, my financial knowledge was still relatively low at the time, but I do know that 3% is a lot better than 2%. Right? I can figure that out for sure. And so I asked the teller, I said, well, okay, what's the difference between, what's the difference between these two accounts here? And she said, well, the money market account, the one's paying the higher rate, you have to have a certain minimum balance in there. And I had that minimum balance, and it was maybe, I don't recall exactly, but let's say it was $500. Yeah. And I had that in there, and I think the other caveat was you can't write more than 3 checks or something like that per month. And I was writing 0 checks on that account, so that wasn't an issue. And so I'm just basically saying, so okay, with this account I can get 3%. Right now I'm getting 2%, but there's no additional risk or anything like that. And she said no. And so then she finally asked me, well, do you want me to change it over to that account? And I was like, yes, of course I do. I would rather get a 50% increase in my interest rate, no doubt. Wow. And so I remember walking out of there just kind of thinking, I want to be on the side of the table that's really helping people and showing them that, hey, there's a way that you can maybe kind of increase your earnings or your investment returns, maybe with literally no additional risk whatsoever, or maybe with slightly additional risk. And that's what, kind of set me off there. And so I studied finance in college, and the rest is history.
Okay, first career in financial services. Where was it? Where was it?
So I started off, I went to a Dean Witter office in Temple, Texas, which is now Morgan Stanley, but I went to them, and I think I was 16, and tried to open up an investment account then. And again, my parents, they were not investors until I got into the business. They are clients now.
Right, good.
But they basically said, you're too young. You have to be 18 to open up an investment account. So I was like, darn it. And so I literally just waited. And then when I was, 18 or so, I went back, ended up opening up an investment account through them, and then ultimately had an internship with them while I was in college.
Nice.
And so, it's kind of an interesting story. Like Benjamin Franklin said, the thing to try when all else fails is again. And so I'd asked them for an internship, and they said, no, we don't really need anybody. And I said, look, I'll work for free. I will work for free. And they still said, no, we really don't need you. And so I thought, oh gosh, this is kind of disappointing. And then so I went back the next summer though, and also kind of pleaded with them like, hey, I'd really like to work here. I really want to be in the business. And so I told them I'd work for free. And in that case, they said, all right, and they actually hired and paid me some. So it was nice.
Now, you told me before the show, one of the scariest things you ever did was go out on your own.
Yes, that's correct.
What year was that?
Yeah, so it's I know the date, Jeff, not just the year. It was June 24th, 2004. And Jeff and I were talking earlier, and I was telling him that it was going to be either one of the best decisions I've ever made or one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made, and it turned out to be a great decision, but very, very scary, no doubt. I kind of branched off on my own and started my own company called The Wealth Planner. And
that's 2004, and if I remember right, we're still kind of like slowly clawing our way out of the dot-com bust.
Right.
Right. So it was a difficult time for you to start out.
So it was interesting, and the fortunate thing is just because of my sort of background and just the research that I'd already done, I was being an investor myself. I was already familiar with sort of the ebbs and flows of the market. But it was a great experience because I started in the 90s in which everything was going like this, and then we had 2000, 2001, 2002, which those 3 years were negative for the stock market.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went like this, and then went like this, and then went like this, and so forth. And so it was really in a twisted way, it was really kind of a good time to be in the business. And a lot of financial advisors out there just don't have a lot of experience, and they've only seen some of these markets or whatever like that.
Right.
So it's important to have.
I love it. I love it that you're seasoned enough that you've seen a lot of ups and downs and can advise your clients appropriately. Right. We're going to pull up your website. Again, it's thewealthplanner.com, and I'm impressed with as we scroll down your website, just your integrity. I mean, it screams out from the pages of your website that you're not in this to sure you want to make a living, but you're not in this for yourself.
Right. Yeah. It's I'll never forget. This was many years ago, but I was at an industry meeting, and the presenter went around and asked everybody. He said, "Hey, let's stand up and tell why you were in the business." And I couldn't believe it. I was so amazed, and even kind of it sort of irks me to this day. But when they went around and said, "Okay, why are you in the business?" There was probably, maybe Jeff, I don't know, 25%, maybe 30% of people that said, oh, the reason I'm in the business is to make money. And again, the very first person that said that, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, did I really just hear that?
Right.
And then 3 or 4 more people went, and then another person stands up and says, hey, I'm here to make money. And then 3 or 4 more people, another person stands up and says, hey, the reason I'm in the business is to make money. I thought that was crazy, I really feel for their clients. But I started in this business, over 2 decades ago to help people, and that's never changed.
I like that. I mean, I'm a fan of the movie Wall Street, but they have this character, Gordon Gekko, and you remember his famous greed is good.
Sure, yeah.
Right, but greed only takes you so far.
Absolutely.
You have to have a little bit of greed to be successful, but you can't be all consumed with it.
Yeah, well, and it's the age-old, I know you've heard this, Jeff, but it's, the clients or people don't care how much you know until you know how much they care.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You also have an amazing family. We're going to pull up your bio page because look at that. It looks like a Hallmark card. That looks like the picture that comes in the picture. It looks like the picture that's in the picture frame when you buy it. So tell us more about your beautiful family.
Yeah, so I have 2 beautiful and expensive daughters and a beautiful wife as well. And so Celia, she's actually now 14. And Sarah's 10, and so but we stay very active with them for sure. They coach their volleyball teams, and they play a lot of volleyball, and we're a pretty active family for sure.
Have you started to teach them financial literacy?
For sure. So get this, Jeff. It's interesting because a lot of people will say two things when it comes to like saving and investing. They'll say, number one, I wish I would have started sooner. And number two, they say, I wish I would have put more money in. So me, I started investing literally as a teenager. And, I think too, gosh, I wish I would have started at 15 or 14 or something like that, or maybe 12. Well, both of my kids started a Roth IRA at age 5.
Wow.
So they've been, technically investing since they were age 5. And, sometimes joke with my kids, and I almost really, I would almost like this, is that, when they're maybe in their 20s or something like that, or maybe my age, and they look back and say, gosh, I really wish I would have started sooner also. I wish I would have started at 3 instead of age 5 or something like that.
Tell me about an ideal client for you. What does this person look like?
Yeah, great question. So there's really kind of, I'd say, sort of 3 sort of typical clients that I work with. And so number 1 is just high income professionals. Number 2 is what I call sort of windfall winners or sort of sudden wealth winners, whether they won a lottery or maybe they just received a big inheritance or something like that. And then the last thing is just sort of pre-retirees or retirees. That's kind of typically the folks that I work with. And I share this with people though, and if you're like, wait, hey, I'm outside of that box, I'm not one of those or like that, I'll meet with anybody about their financial situation. I'm very happy to do that, and give them some pointers and tips that just maybe to where perhaps we can't bring them on as a client necessarily.
Sure. Well, one of the things I really like about you is that there are so many people in every industry that are out for themselves, and it's clear. You can kind of smell it from a mile away.
Right.
But you don't get to be as successful as you are by padding your own pocketbook. You've got to work in the best interest of your client, so pretty soon you're meeting their brother, sister, uncle, aunt, son, daughter, right?
Yeah, and in fact, it's interesting, Jeff, because when I started out, the company I started with, the way they kind of trained us to build up business was we would literally go and we would knock on doors and meet total strangers. And that's a very good insight into human behavior, Jeff. I'll just say that. And so you get some interesting experiences there. But when after I started my own business in 2004, I've pretty much never really marketed. I don't prospect, I don't cold call, I don't knock on any doors. I just service the heck out of my existing clients, and then basically, well over 90% of my new clients come from referrals.
That's beautiful. Okay, we're almost out of time. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts is, gosh, I don't know, man. You stumped me on the last question here, Jeff. But I think I would just say this is that, I am a certified financial planner, and I do a lot of workshops, and I teach a review class 3 times a year. I have a pretty extensive tax background. I'm a registered tax return preparer, have the IRS enrolled agent designation, and most financial advisors have close to zero tax knowledge. And I mean, literally close to zero. And that's typically for 2 reasons. One, they just don't like taxes, and so they just say, well, I'll just let my CPA do that or something like that. Or then the other thing is that their firm, because of so legal liability, they really don't want them talking about taxes. And one of the firms I work with out of college, that's kind of how they were, don't talk about tax, don't even say the word tax, definitely don't give tax advice, because they just don't want to be liable for some of those things. But very shortly into the business, you realize that pretty much every financial component or every financial decision has a tax component at some point, whether it's immediate or somewhere down the road. And so it's important to hire I would say definitely hire a person that is a certified financial planner, but then also somebody with a pretty solid tax background as well.
Outstanding. John Loyd, we're going to leave everyone with the website, which is thewealthplanner.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.